Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com, and these are the market positions for June the 14th, 2011. Now, to get started, our first position for tonight is going to be in the stock market, specifically the LNDC, the Landec. Now, what this started, it's very tough to find a stock that's actually gaining some value over the last few weeks, but this one's been certainly holding its own. Now, key levels here, 592, 594, and 595 with a close of 597. We can see that our predicted medium and long-term difference is above the zero line. However, our predicted short-term difference is below the zero line. That's a bit of a concern. Now, our predicted MACD and our predicted TSI both crossing the trigger and pointing higher. From here, what we want to do is go in and look at the Vantage Point crossovers. They're proprietary crossovers. Now, looking at the short-term crossover from Vantage Point, we can see that the short-term crossover has been to the downside a few days ago, but it's now starting to move back up. Our medium-term crossover, however, which again weeds out that market noise, has remained above the trigger and we're still holding in a buy position. Long-term crossover, same thing. So the medium and long-term crossovers from Vantage Point are telling us that this stock is going to go higher. Now, looking at the accuracy of the predicted high-low range from Vantage Point, you can see that we've broke above the Vantage Point predicted high, so that is considered a high-low break. Tomorrow's range, again, looks very narrow with an upside bias. So looking at all these factors, we then want to go into the daily report and see if we can fine-tune this entry point. Now, we know that we've got this stock has basically been trading between $5 and $6 in my opinion for, I would say, about the last 9-10 months. So, you know, and you can see this in the high and the low of the day, 607. The lowest we've seen in the last several weeks is probably down around the 550 mark. So risk to reward is quite good on a trade like this. For tomorrow, we've got 587, 603, so that's going to be our entry point, $5.87, 590 for the sake of argument. We're then going to be looking for a move over that $6 mark. Now, short-term traders, they would get out there on probably on a leveraged position, I would assume. Your medium and longer-term traders, they would be looking for 640, 650. Maybe even a little bit higher. Very, very good possibility. By, you know, if we go back and we look at the charts, you know, the charts are actually, they show us that this stock not too long ago was up in the $660, $7 area. So and you know, even though the S&P 500 and a lot of the other stocks are really doing very poorly, this stock is actually doing quite well. It's been very, very stable. So taking all of this into consideration, this is a stock I think we should be looking at. So for tomorrow, 587, 590 is the entry point. 603, 605, somewhere in that area. That's where you're going to be looking to get out on your day trade. But again, your medium-term traders, I think we could see a little bit higher. Now that's our first position for tonight. Now our second position for tonight is going to be in light sweet crude. Specifically, we're looking at the continuous contracts, depending on which month you're trading. Now, what I want to point out here, we've got some key levels, 127, 99.39, and 98.60 with a close of 97.30. These are three very significant areas of resistance now. We can see that this sell-off took place back on about approximately May the 5th. It's come back up, it's retraced, it's tried to break through these levels, it just hasn't been able to get through there. We are oversold, so I would expect a bit of a bounce up into this 127 area. Now again, with equities, the high correlation to equities and crude oil, basically following that, the equity, the S&P 500, the Dow very closely. This is essentially what we're seeing here or likely to see is further downward pressure after we get a corrective move higher. So again, I'm monitoring this area between 98.60 and 127 for the entry point. Now, considering we had such a significant break today, we've gone all the way down to 96.13. Markets may be a little bit thin with parts of Europe out on holiday today, but still they did manage to push it considerably lower. So looking at our main crossovers from Vantage Point, again, we always want to make sure that we're going through these. Our short-term crossover, just crossing that trigger back down to the downside. Our medium-term crossover bouncing off the trigger, it's also moving lower, and our long-term crossover has just crossed that trigger to the downside. So now another thing I like about this trade, the predicted short, medium, and long-term differences all pointing lower. and again below the zero line at trend ready levels. The only thing that concerns me somewhat here is the position of the MACD, and more importantly the position of the predicted TSI. They are in oversold territory, so we know it's going to bounce. It's just a question of how far is it going to bounce before we can look at getting back into the short positions. So from there, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the daily report from Vantage Point here and see exactly what we're looking at. We've got 98.33, 95.77. So 98.33 is the first potential entry point based around that daily predicted high and low. Now, to gauge whether the accuracy of the predicted high and low, what we can do is pull that right up on our screen, hit the F5, and you can see that the Vantage Point software has been quite accurate. Now, it has broken the high, basically in the last week, it's broken the high twice and it's broken the low twice. So you can see that it's very interesting. We're basically flat here, but it's with a clear downside bias. So for tomorrow, we're going to use that. I would prefer I'm going to say for an entry point between 98.33 and 99.33. That's where my personal preference would be on this particular trade. So I would monitor in that area, and stops would be above 101. So those are the market positions for June the 14th, 2011. And again, my name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com.